see why Kanye.
Thomas and two Thomases in the game.
I like Thomas.
I liked it. We have to get into that one.
Thomas is a smart dude.
Yes.
I like him. He's
Is
very
Thomas in
intellectual.
Chicago?
Who knows where he's at? He's been on those universities.
He probably
could
talked
be
to
anywhere.
Kanye, probably.
Miss
Kanye.
I love it.
Kanye's mom was a.
This Negro black man. You said, where's Thomas? Did you say, where's Thomas?
Yeah,
I
where you
think
live
that
at?
was a Black Panther.
How the hell do we?
Somebody can know that.
I'm sorry, no, bro. How would you?
Yeah,
Can you look up where somebody lives?
I think he's a
You
professor.
can look up a
at
hometown, but can you see where
He's a
person
professor.
lives?
He's a professor, bro. I mean,
Okay,
I'd
but
assume he's
he might have been a professor
Nah, I
20
think-
years ago, 10 years ago.
Nah, bro, I think we could actually look that up. But no, you're right, because he's 92 years old. He's no way still a professor.
92.
He's 92.
So look up
Where
where Thomas Sowell lives.
Okay, let's find this out.
How you can find that? You
I
gonna
don't
find
think
out
you can find
when
that,
you
bro.
find that, you gonna be like, damn.
You can't find where a person lives, man.
Nigga, we can find where you live.
It says that he had, well, nah, please, he has lived in the past.
Yeah,
Let's see what-
nobody's gonna say he lives.
Anyways.
Yeah. Okay. What is this one about?
Facts about slavery that we never mentioned in school.
This gonna blow some brains.
This is
Wow.
There's probably a whole bunch of those.
I'm actually very interested to get into
Says
this.
what?
Facts about slavery never mentioned in school.
Hey, brother. Don't say what if Kanye was right.
Kanye
I
the
believe
hug.
Kanye was right, brother.
Well,
Everything
slavery, I ain't gonna lie.
Kanye said.
I don't.
Oh,
think
it was a choice.
I don't think they chose to be there.
Nah, I wouldn't say that at all.
He said we was
It
choosing
makes
to
sense
be
if
in
you sound like
slavery
you, Kyrie Irving.
because
type
we was
dude.
beaten
Nah,
into
brother.
submission. So we just chose to, like he said, we could have fought back. That's what it sounds crazy, huh?
Yeah, I disagree with him, but I like Kanye. I'm a Kanye fan, but that one,
He's like, we were slaves for 400 years. At some point, it had to have been a choice. That's what he said.
I'm agreeing with all black woke movements, you know?
I don't know about that
We
one.
gonna have to,
I can't hop on board that one.
let's
Let
start this
you
train
bots
up.
be bots.
Let's
You
start-
will buy it. You're the biggest bot in the That means I agree with all of it, but y'all bots. What?
I agree with the covering
Bots
up.
think everyone else is
I agree
bot.
with covering up the Nike chick, man.
Bots think all everyone else is body.
One day, man, one day. They'll say, I
Salo AI.
finally, my brain has finally expanded. I understand what Kyrie was trying to do, man.
What was that?
The instrumental use of the history of slavery today also underlies the claim that slavery grew out of racism. For most of its long history, which includes most of the history of the human race, slavery was largely not the enslavement of racially different people, for the simple reason that only in recent centuries has either the technology or the wealth existed to go to another continent to get slaves and transport them en masse across an ocean. People were enslaved because they were vulnerable, not because of how they looked. The peoples of the Balkans were enslaved by fellow Europeans, as well as by the peoples of the Middle East, for at least 6 centuries before the first African was brought to the Western Hemisphere. Before the modern era, by and large, Europeans enslaved other Europeans, Asians enslaved other Asians, Africans enslaved other Africans, and the indigenous peoples of the Western Hemisphere enslaved other indigenous peoples of the Western Hemisphere. Slavery was not based on race, much less on theories about race. Only relatively late in history did enslavement across racial lines occur on such a scale as to promote an ideology of racism that outlasted the institution of slavery itself. Wherever a separate people were enslaved, they were disdained or despised, whether they were different by country, religion, caste, race, or tribe. In East Africa, the Maasai were feared slave raiders, and other African tribes, either alone or in conjunction with Arabs, enslaved their more vulnerable neighbors. As late as 1891, it was reported that Manyuema slavers had demoralized surrounding tribes, destroying crops, and famine reigned everywhere. Even in the early 20th century, Abyssinians were still raiding other Africans and carrying off slaves. It was 1922 before the British had gained sufficient control in Tanganyika to stamp out slavery there. Arabs were the leading slave raiders in East Africa, ranging over an area larger than all of Europe. The total number of slaves exported from East Africa during the 19th century has been estimated to be at least 2 million. The form in which the story of slavery has reached most people today has been along the lines of the best-selling book and widely watched television miniseries Roots by Alex Haley. Challenged on the historical accuracy of Roots, Haley said, "I tried to give my people a myth to live by." This instrumental use of history, or purported history, is open to the same objections as other instrumental myth-making.
He said a myth.
Nigga said a myth. He's bothering us.
So basically saying that slavery wasn't built on racism, it was just like built on exploiting weaker people.
Yeah.
Didn't matter what they
Basically.
look like.
Yeah, I mean,
So
that
basically-
makes totally much
Yeah,
a
He
lot
was
of
saying
sense.
Africans enslaved Africans, white people, and Europeans enslaved Europeans, and then the other indigenous people just came to the West Indies and just enslaved them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Because they were weaker. And that's
Yeah, and when you look at it like that,
enslaved other Arabs and stuff.
my question is, I wonder if just race derived from slavery then. Like racism derived from slavery rather than racism created. That makes sense? Like over a course of hundreds of years of slavery, whether racism then was created through that.
He said because he said slaves were always despised by the enslavers.
Mm-hmm.
He said that, so they just hated them because they were slaves. So that's why they hated black people.
So maybe they didn't hate, like I said, he didn't hate them because they were black. They were just weaker people, like free work. Like
Yeah, but I guess
Yeah, but what would make you weaker? No money?
But listen, you're right
The
though,
position
because,
you in, it's
because
They
the
had
laws
rods.
were made to
Because
be
remember,
against
there was
people that were
Africans and
black.
other Africans.
That came from
So the
slavery.
stronger ones.
After they
just
freed
them
us, the
and
laws they
said,
made
"Y'all
were to keep
over.
us
We taking our
weaker.
yeah.
Like they were like, oh, black people can't get
So,
jobs.
okay,
Yeah,
I got a
can't
weird
go
question to
3/4
ask,
of a
though.
person.
Yeah.
You can't do this. Can't go here.
We
can't
couldn't
do
be
that.
weaker,
Some
bro. It
things
had to
like
be
that.
something else, bro.
That's what he said. That's what he said. We were weaker people.
Like,
That's
is
why
it
we
like
got
less
enslaved.
power?
Yeah, and then he said
Like
other black
money
black
power
people.
or strength.
Because it was
It can't be
Africans.
physical. It can't be physical.
No, bro. Listen, it's not even that. It's just like he said that other Africans
Yeah.
from bigger tribes
Yeah.
preyed on
The little
those
ones.
smaller, weaker tribes.
Yeah, yeah,
And
enslaved them.
and then sold them.
Then sold
over
them.
here.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the white people came to the islands with guns while we didn't have that and enslaved them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so that way in that way they were.
You gonna run
yeah,
from
less
you gonna run
firepower
from
than
a
them.
bullet?
Yeah.
So then,
Yeah.
Then-
Due to their resources, they were
even if they didn't have guns, they probably had swords and other things
Yeah.
that we didn't
Who-
have.
who-
You coming over there butt booted naked, boy.
Bro, okay, bro. But who made
The gun.
the gun? What, like, how did that change?
whatever, just
Because they
the
was like you
gunpowder.
could shoot a.
That's
I know
let's go back
that
into
you can
it.
shoot it, but
Let's
like,
go back to it.
who
Oh, I don't know.
who decided to? Man, I'm packing
That was something like the Revolutionary War or something.
They watched television
before that, bro. It had to
miniseries
be way
Roots
before that.
by Alex Haley.
I don't know.
Challenged on the historical accuracy of Roots, Haley said, "I tried to give my people a myth to live by. This instrumental use of history, or purported history,
Jokes.
is open to the same objections as other instrumental myth-making. Despite the impression created by Roots, during the era of the massive slave trade from West Africa, a white man was more likely to catch malaria in Africa than to catch slaves himself. The average life expectancy of a white man in the interior of sub-Saharan Africa at that time was less than 1 year.
Damn.
By and large, men
That's
from
a lot
Europe
over there.
or the Western Hemisphere came to the coasts of Africa, bought their slaves, and left as soon as possible. Even so, the death rates among the white crews of the ships carrying slaves to the Western Hemisphere were as high as the death rates among the slaves themselves. It was only much later, after quinine and other medical measures enabled Europeans to survive where there were tropical diseases, was it possible for them to invade Africa in force and establish empires there.
Damn.
But by then, the Atlantic slave trade had already been ended. During the era of that trade, Africa...
Nigga, not everybody
Literally
died.
just said.
Everybody, no, everybody.
He said they were trying to get there and leave.
Yeah, they got
Like,
there,
had
all
a
of them
year.
left.
Okay, but like
Man,
the
we'll
same
be-
disease and all that shit gonna be on them.
Yeah, they
They
was
on
dying.
the boat with them niggas.
They were
What you mean?
dying. He said they were dying.
Yeah.
Of the white people on the boats was dying.
Yeah.
Disease.
So
Oh,
slaves
like-
was dying from being in chains and unfed and just
Yeah.
and living in disgusting conditions.
dying
And the
from
white people
malaria.
was dying because they was sick.
So like, man, niggas wanna get sick at the slave house.
And what
man?
he's saying, like,
Probably
as
was.
medication had, like,
God.
as medicine has improved, they were able to, like,
And they came back and they enslaved and set up their own empire.
they came back stronger than ever. And they said, come here, boy.
Yeah, I mean, I bet that would tell because I mean, people was dying in Jamestown by being in North America.
Yeah, facts.
What?
They was saying
Yeah,
the Native
James
Americans,
Conroy, no
the Native
boy.
Americans was dying from the diseases the white people brought.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can imagine what they
Yeah,
was
so
going
it was just so on and so forth because it's different cultures, different things,
get into it.
different.
During the era of that trade, Africa was largely ruled by Africans, who established the conditions under which slave sales took place. The crew of a slave ship was in no position to defy African rulers and their armies by going out across the land and capturing people willy-nilly. The stronger African peoples captured and enslaved the weaker peoples. the same pattern found over the centuries in Europe, Asia, the Western Hemisphere, and Polynesia. In Nyasaland, the Ngoni and Yao swaggered over and terrorized other tribes. In Uganda, the Baganda made life miserable for their neighbors. And the Nyoro and Hima of Ankole enslaved Toro women and children. The Tutsi dominated the Hutu in Rwanda, the Maasai lorded it over the Kikuyu and Kamba, and the latter, in turn, held the Indorobo in a kind of serfdom. It was precisely the fact that Europeans, except for the Portuguese, seldom participated in the raids that captured and enslaved Africans that enabled most people in Europe and the Americas to remain oblivious to the traumatic experience that this was, with some Africans committing suicide to avoid capture and wives being whipped as they tried to cling to their husbands or children. Historian David Breon Davis pointed out that Europeans had little contact with the actual process of enslavement, and that as late as 1721, the Royal African Company asked its agents to investigate the modes of enslavement in the interior. Europeans typically saw only the end results, enslaved people being offered for sale on the coast. It was much the same story in the Ottoman Empire, where those who bought slaves had no idea what these slaves had been through before. The unique position of the Western world in the history, and especially the destruction of slavery, need not imply that there was unanimity within the West on this institution. In addition to whites who defended the enslavement of Africans on racial grounds, or who opposed general emancipation on social grounds, there were many whites, and even blacks, who defended slavery as a matter of self-interest as slave owners. Although most black owners of slaves in the United States were only nominal owners of members of their own families, there were thousands of other blacks in the antebellum South who were commercial slave owners, just like their white counterparts. An estimated 1/3 of the free persons of color in New Orleans were slave owners, and thousands of these slave owners volunteered to fight for the Confederacy during the Civil War.
Whoa.
Dang.
Black slave owners were even more common in the Caribbean. In short, there were many defenders of slavery in the West, even in the 19th century. And outside the West, slavery was too widely accepted to require defense. No other nation ended slavery in the same way as the United States did, and few ended it after so short a struggle, as history is measured. How and why did slavery end in most of the world? There were two major processes. Over the centuries, as more and more territories around the world consolidated into nation-states with their own armies and navies, raiding those territories to capture and enslave the people who lived within them became more hazardous in itself, and also risked military retaliation against the countries from which the raiders came. Thus, more and more peoples became off-limits to slave raiders over time. Put differently, the areas which remained subject to slave raiding over the centuries were primarily those where the people lived in smaller or weaker societies. Such societies continued to exist where it was difficult, for geographic or other reasons, to consolidate large areas under one government. This was true of the Balkans, the backwaters of Asia, and much of sub-Saharan Africa. By the early modern era, sub-Saharan Africa, with its numerous and severe geographic handicaps, was one of the last remaining areas from which vast numbers of people could be enslaved.
That was actually very
extremely educational.
That's what I'm saying. I learned a lot right there.
On YouTube, that I learned in school, bro.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, there were white slaves as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And black owners, yeah. Oh, there were black slave owners with white slaves. Like black people who owned white slaves. So.
And that's what they call indentured servants.
No, it's a different type of slavery. It's like a different type of thing.
Is it?
I think that's what they try to refer to slavery as.
Indentured servant is like something else.
Little.
Yeah.
With this
something
information, can we say that the world is getting slightly better?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, I think we made
We see the problem.
leaps almost from that. I mean, shoot.
I mean,
me
it
and
is
you should be
problems.
working now. It don't fix that. Nah, you know what I mean?
I would say the world is getting
Well, no,
better.
we wouldn't be in the same place.
From that
but
standard, yes. Yeah.
Besides,
Me and Taj would be.
School shootings.
sex trafficking and stuff like that.
An indentured servant is a person that agrees to work with a contract
yeah.
without salary for a specific number of years.
Yeah.
So basically, indenture means like voluntarily.
Yeah,
So basically, like you agree to
Get
work for
housing.
free. Yeah.
So there's like an intern.
The people in
Basically-
power.
Basically.
If you're
Had
on track,
slaves.
you're an indentured servant.
Oh.
If you're
That makes a lot of sense. So
Oh,
what?
that you're an indentured servant if you're like repaying a debt.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so if you're in debt to me, you could like come do my bidding for
Bro,
free.
everything is
Yeah.
clicking now, bro. Because think about it, bro.
Kyrie was right.
No, bro, chill, bro.
Dang, yeah, up to some.
Oh, Antonio, bro. Antonio tried to tell us, bro. AB,
Man, what AB was on, bro?
Nah, chill, bro.
He
All right,
should
let him say what he got to say.
Nah, it's like, so,
Really,
We
money
had-
is power.
yeah, okay,
That's what it's
basically
showing.
that. Basically
what?
that.
Money is really
They
power.
let the slaves go. When slavery was ended, it was us, or we don't know our ancestors, or they didn't have anything. We never had anything.
They are not
So,
so
like-
right either, yeah.
We are getting better. Now we have stuff. Now we have the opportunities.
I mean, this is the
to
best
do
black people has
certain-
ever been.
But it's black people that were rich, obviously. I mean, I didn't know that black people had slaves. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
you said white people had. They said that in the video.
Yeah, they
White
said
people
that
had
white slaves in the
Yeah, it was
Caribbean
a-
islands.
They said they had
white
when-
slaves.
No,
No.
I don't know
He
about
said they
white,
had
but
slaves. I don't know. They said anything
Like
about
what
white
I'm saying, like, I knew that prior to this video.
White
Like
slaves
white slaves
but-
is a thing. Like white,
Yeah,
there were
there
white
are-
slaves.
look
Well,
at-
he
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
say
yeah.
white people enslaved other white people.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the video, he said slavery wasn't born out of racism.
Yeah. And
Well,
that's what
but
made
I
me
didn't hear
think.
him say that black people enslaved white people.
Yeah, that's something I knew like prior to this video.
So
That's
where
me.
they did that at?
I thought, to my assumption, I thought it happened here in the States.
What?
In war?
Like there were
in
black,
war?
like there were black slave owners in the U.S. Like
No,
unless I'm
I
wrong, I could be wrong.
I know,
No, white folk
I
now.
know, I know it's a Creole
Not
lady
now, here.
that used to have a slave, what's it called? I forgot her name, bro. It was a Creole lady that had buku slaves down here in the South.
Probably. No, that was pretty educational. So basically, like slavery wasn't born out of racism, but racism was born out of slavery.
That's what I was wondering. That's what I'm
Because
saying.
that was big. Because he said they weren't enslaving us because we were black. We were already enslaved by probably other black people. Or like,
Yeah.
or maybe Arabs, like who knows? But like
Yeah.
when we were free from
It's
slavery
politics.
and we didn't have anything and we started trying to get stuff, he said that the enslavers hated the enslaved people. So they hated us because we were black slaves. But then we were free black people, former slaves, so they hated us because of that. So they basically made rules and laws to still keep us down.
Yeah.
And we just happened to all be
Jim
black.
If y'all
So
really-
the rules were formed around
Almost
us.
like
maybe
maybe,
they hated
if y'all
because
really
they
think
lost-
about that,
They lost power.
What?
They lost power.
Yeah, they lost the power over us, so they did the
They
laws and
didn't
rules
own
were
us.
to keep us down. That's what I
Yeah,
said.
that's
Yeah, keep us down.
but you
So-
know what's crazy though? When you think a lot of black people would have kind of thrived outside of slavery because it was a lot of skills they have learned.
True, but
Bro,
without the
listen,
ability to read
listen,
and write
listen.
is very.
I know that's
I'm
very strong
I'm
too.
gonna tell you why. They hated us because we were former slaves. So that they're not gonna give us jobs where we can be
Yeah.
on equal footing with them. Because if they do, then we'll have power, and we're mad about slavery.
We can pass them up.
We'll try to kill them.
Yeah.
We'll try to revolt. So to keep us down, they made rules to keep
Jim
us out.
Crow.
So they're refusing us
Can't
work.
vote.
Then
Yeah.
this is something I
understand
watched.
that.
This is something I learned in the Dr. Umar
I understand
video.
that.
He said that the laws, they started building jails. They started building jails and they started making petty rules. Like, so we didn't have any money because they're not hiring us. There's
Yeah.
rules against
Put
us.
you in jail
so,
easy,
Yeah,
yeah.
so they made not having a job illegal. So
Yeah,
black
yeah,
folks
I
get
remember
arrested for
that. I learned that.
Then we don't have no money, so we got to steal, like petty theft, steal a little food and stuff. They made that illegal. So we start going to jail for that. So basically,
Question.
so
Let's continue.
Jail
so
was
basically,
slavery.
jail was a system created to
Uh-huh.
keep black people down, which was why now it's a black mass incarceration thing because they're finding new ways to induct these laws. So that's where that term systemic racism comes from.
Gotcha.
That's what that term comes from.
So knowing that, right? If let's say like the people that we watched on the Justice Show, right? Those two people who were defeated terribly, or what we like to say, victim-minded black people, right?
Yeah.
Could you now, hearing that, could you now reason with them more or see their side more when they say?
I mean,
no.
if they used an instance of that, I would see it more. But they were just saying bullshit to me personally.
No, not them in particular. I'm just saying a victim mind who said it's white people. Someone who may say it's white people's fault we're in this position today.
I
Would you, knowing that,
To a
would you
certain
side with them
extent.
more?
Okay,
Would you see their
I mean,
point
there's
more now?
there's things and things you can say that, but I mean,
I would say you can like, yeah, statistically, like broadly speaking, yeah, you right. But if you want to change your situation, like if you can say, what can I do about it?
Okay, not individually, but I'm saying like
but as a whole, yeah. as
Would
a
you
whole,
say
yeah.
it's white people? Could you see more that they'd be like black people as a whole? Is it white people's fault?
it might not be white people's
Listen,
fault. It
here's
actually
black-
would be
black
because
people,
who
bro,
sold them to the white
to
people.
me, they were trying to make it seem like we don't get the same opportunities and things because we're black. In today's time, that's BS.
Yes.
You can go to college, you can get jobs, you can get in these rooms. They just have rules that you have to abide by. You can't have crazy hair and all this stuff. But look, the people that work there aren't having that either. So to them to say it's racist for you to cut your hair when all the white men there have well-kept hair and things like that, just abide by that rule of being groomed and work there. But she was saying, oh, they was telling me my crazy hair was unprofessional. Well, like he said, you agreed to abide by the rules.
Looking at this video, we're doing good, brother.
Yeah.
I mean, historically, black people are better now than ever before.
We're just killing each other. That's the only bad part.
I won't say we're better now than ever before. I'll say we have more opportunities now than ever before.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, we have more opportunities to be successful now than ever before. I feel like, yes, you may come from a poor background, blah, 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 but as we said, everything that happens in life is on you. If you want something, you get it. There's opportunity for people who make less money to go to college. There's like things by state. Oh, you have to have this certain GPA, and you get state assistant scholarship to go to school. So like you just have to get these things.
There are more successful black people now than ever before. I think.
Yeah, but looking at this
there was
video,
Black Wall Street.
You could be in a bad situation.
Well, they messed up a lot of black towns. Though.
You could be born poor back then, and you're fucked. There's nothing you can do, boy. You can dig all day. You can have the best vision in the world, boy.
If you have
unless you can goddamn tap dance like them boys.
You didn't have the same opportunity.
I've seen that blues,
man.
Play football.
I'm gonna keep it
not even in.
If you had a skill, you straight.
No, bro. They're not hiring you.
Yeah.
If you can make your own
you're
stuff,
a slave. You're doing work.
How do you know how to do it? You can't read. You can't write.
You can't do shit.
All you know how to do is pick cotton.
You got the best vision ever.
They was not just picking cotton, bro. They was doing all handy. They
were. They're doing it.
Imagine someone.
I know, but they learning that. So when they not in slavery no more, you think they can't sell it?
Okay, listen. How are you going to apply your skill that you know with no food in your belly, no shelter to sleep in, no clothes?
I understand that.
And imagine one way of lifestyle for 20 years, and you just like, okay, like. Go be a productive.
When did they slip baseball players even getting to the MLB, brother?
Was it Jackie Robinson the first?
1950s?
40s, 50s.
That is, bro. Come on, bro. They was on their
you know how long the Alabama
hundreds of
Crimson
years.
Tide? Let me see when the Alabama Crimson Tide got their first black.
When did slavery be abolished?
Jackie Robinson was
it
the
18
first.
or 17?
Jackie Robinson was the first black baseball player for the Dodgers in 1947.
Okay, when did slavery was abolished?
1865. But
1865.
it didn't take till like another year or so to like
longer than a year.
Well, that was a while. It's a South.
It's probably like 10.
What they call Juneteenth? When Juneteenth?
When they figured it out.
They finally, because they was a free and
they don't tell them, hey, did you know they're free? Did you see that on Twitter?
Yeah, what they gonna say?
You seen that on Twitter?
I didn't even know. That's how I want this.
Smash some President Lincoln said,
it's literally flowers. I don't think it's all
I gotta stop doing that.
I ain't gonna lie to
What you say?
I might be wrong, bro.
President Lincoln said,
I don't think they just hated black people, though, bro. I don't think
bro,
it was.
I think black people were just going for the low. That's why they went copy.
I don't think originally, but I think over slavery of 400 years. Then like over generation of 400 years, then they become racist.
Because listen, you gotta look. We was deprived of education. Then once we was free, we couldn't get food. We couldn't get jobs. We didn't have housing. We didn't have clothes. We had nothing. We're literally just out here. So we just wander in the streets with nothing. Literally, you don't know shit.
Yeah.
Like, so you out there. Obviously, you're gonna turn to crime. Like you see them eating food, but you don't have money to get the food, but you want that food, so you steal it. So boom, they have to find ways to punish us. So they start putting us in jail and things like that.
So my question is, that's my point.
My question was forced into that.
Those pro-black people who say that, could you now somewhat see,
you can
not case by case individuals, as a whole, as a mass?
Listen, back then, that made sense.
Okay.
Now, in 2023, that's not our reality anymore.
Yeah,
so speaking back on then, I can see where they're coming
Wherever
from.
you envision,
people have died and fought for our right to be integrated members of society.
Yeah.
So now that we have opportunity to go out there and make something of yourself, what we're trying to do, all of us in this room are trying to do. When people fall into that subculture and throw their life away to be cool, and that's what's destroying our people. Yeah. And that is what Thomas Sowell is teaching. True. That is what I picked up from these videos.
True.
Yeah, I don't think they hated black people though, because I'm gonna keep it honest, bro. Maybe okay,
listen, he said in the video they enslaved black people, and the enslavers hated. They did not like the people they enslaved, and we just happened to be black. So therefore, when we're free, all the shit they did to keep us down was based on us being black. They can't do it because we're not slaves anymore. So you can't say, just because you're a free slave, you can't work. No, they had to find a way to word it to put us down. So that happened to be us being black, our skin color.
But the British man is a Christian man, and the British man put us in slavery.
Okay, let's keep it 100.
I don't think that they hated. I don't think they hated. Well, I mean, maybe,
but he just said it was Africans who sold other Africans, so they just heard people going for the low over there.
Yeah.
You trying to buy a slave over here, he costs this much. Over there, he costs this much. He's happy to be black.
I think that they taught Lil Jimmy, hey, that's a nigga out there.
Oh, yeah.
He's about
what's they
to nothing.
Yeah.
I got him for nothing.
Yeah.
A couple of dollars, and Lil Jimmy's working for us for free.
But who they buying from?
And he was like, so you, Lil Jimmy, spit on Lil Jimmy. Spit on goddamn.
You gotta break them into service. You gotta break them into service.
Crabs in a barrel mindset.
So the little kid maybe I feel like he might grew up hating the damn.
Bro, listen. The enslavers. He said in the video, the enslavers hated the enslaved. Yes. So they didn't hate them, but they didn't like the enslaved people. So therefore, little kids are growing up seeing black people being enslaved. They don't like them. So their dad's probably, that damn dumb black blah blah blah.
And this is going
dark
on
skin da da da.
For
so they're being taught
years.
that. They're being taught that. So boom.
Yeah, they be
So boom. That's how that happens.
If it was
so
a white baby and a black baby, they don't vibe.
Yeah, facts.
Yeah. Anyways,
but we're growing more and more out of racism as time goes on.
Yes, we have to stop these victim mentalities and stop the separation and just realize we're all one people. And in order to grow, we have to be a community. Yeah. All this division is destroying us as people. As a nation.
Great discussion, man. Thomas opens up a lot of discussion.
Man. Yeah, man. I really feel like I learned a lot from those two videos, personally.
That's
great.
That stuff about slavery really was very educational.
It was. It makes me wonder if slavery never happened. What would
I wonder how they was able to teach the slaves to speak English.
Always
they was not teaching them how to write and read.
It's gonna be poor niggas.
Bro, they'll probably be like,
we'll probably still
and beat you until you did what they told you. They're probably
first start getting niggas. They got a long night.
I think niggas in Africa was probably doing niggas way dirtier than what niggas was doing over here.
He said that the big tribes.
He probably was doing niggas dirty.
He said the big tribes. Well, I ain't gonna lie. We shouldn't compare the atrocities that were committed in the name of slavery. Bad things were done in both sides. We shouldn't compare.
I say that's a good way to wrap this up.
All about this today. What we're talking about.
How is the snowfall?
All right,
let's wrap this video.
Wrap it up. That's
okay. All right, watch Snowfall. We're out of here. Thank you, Thomas. Let us know how y'all feel about Thomas. We gone.